Hey everybody! Today's topic is going to be natural skincare. So before I dive into the actual recipe making, I want to talk a little bit about some of the terminology and some of the basic elements that might go into the recipes that you eventually create for yourself. So I'm going to talk about essential oils, infused oils, hydrosols, and flower essences. So I know that essential oils are all the rage right now, and maybe it's a little bit tough to figure out how to use them, where to get them, but I think it's important to understand what they actually are. So an essential oil is basically a concentrated extract of the volatile oils that are found in a plant. Normally this is created via a steam distillation process. So basically the volatile oils of the plant are the elements of the plant that can be evaporated. And they're also the elements of the plant that actually give the plant its smell, its aroma. So that essential oil is just that one element of a plant, the volatile oil of the plant. So it's different than using the whole plant itself. It's a very concentrated version of those volatile oils, and it can be taken internally or topically. But with both of those methods, you do want to move forward with a little bit of caution. You want to make sure that your body can handle that amount of concentration. A lot of times it's recommended that you actually dilute them in, say, another carrier oil, or you can actually dilute them in water or tea, because those oils can actually irritate sensitive skin. They can irritate mucous membranes if they're taken internally. So it is just important to use a little bit of caution when you're using this type of medicine. It's not meant to scare you, it's just meant to prepare you for how to best use them. And in the text portion of this, I'll link to some places that I recommend to actually get the essential oils, so you do want to make sure that you're getting them from a reputable source. There's not a whole lot of regulation out there for this sort of thing, so it's important to get a good essential oil. Next would be an infused oil. Oh, and let me show you, this is just a little bottle of essential oils. They come from many different places, but they're usually in pretty small bottles like this. Next would be an infused oil. So I actually have one here from my own medicine cabinet. So this is jojoba oil and castor oil that actually has been infused with eucalyptus and peppermint. So an infused oil is basically that initial carrier oil, so that could be olive oil, sweet almond oil, jojoba oil, there's many out there, that has essentially gained some of the constituents of a plant through extraction. So two ways to do that. One would be take a jar like this or a container like this and actually submerge dried herbs into the oil. So it's essentially going to be sitting in the oil for anywhere from 2 weeks to 4 weeks, depending on sort of your end use. And then you're going to be straining out those herbs, and you're going to be left with this oil that has essentially been infused with some of those healing properties of the plants. So it's different than an essential oil because the essential oil is just those volatile oils, whereas this is an oil that's been infused with some of the oil solvent parts of the plant. This is often used as a base for a salve or an ointment, or it can just be applied on its own. Next would be hydrosols. So these might not be quite as familiar to you. I have one here that I purchased from Mountain Rose Herbs. They're usually in some kind of a spray bottle. But basically a hydrosol is another element of the plant that is extracted in that steam distillation process that's used to gather those essential oils. So it's kind of the watery byproduct of that steam distillation. So it's a lot less concentrated than the essential oils, and it actually often contains sort of more of the constituents of the whole plant, not just those essential oils like the essential oil. So it's a more watery, less concentrated plant medicine that can be used as, it can be used topically as just a facial spritz or a toner or a body spritz. It does have a light scent to it, but it's not going to be as scented as the essential oils, or even as sometimes the infused oils. And then last but not least is a flower essence. So these often come in quite small dropper bottles, sort of similar to essential oils. And again, I'll link to some places where I think these are really high quality. So unlike the three other elements, this is mostly used for emotional support. So one way to think about it would be that a flower essence is basically the positive vibrations of a plant. And what I mean by that is, if you think about plants being outside and having to deal with many things coming at them, so whether that's weather or disease or a pest, over the seasons and over the years they sort of gain some strength and some wisdom that is kind of infused into their essence. And so as a human, you might need some emotional support. You might need some guidance from some plants. So basically flower essences are the constituents of those plants that are emotional. So it's kind of the soul of the plant, if you will. So a flower essence is basically created by gathering those flowers from that plant, submerging it in water. So if you are using a plant that is in bloom in the sunlight, you would be putting out your watery flower mix under the sunlight and letting it sit for a few hours, and then straining out those flowers, and you're left with this beautiful sort of infused water. If you were using a night blooming plant, you might want to do that same process but actually under the moonlight. But that's up to you. Once you have that sort of flowery water, you're going to preserve or dilute it with just a little bit of brandy. So that prolongs its shelf life, and that gives you the availability to sort of combine it with other flower essences or use it in another recipe. So essentially flower essences are a really wonderful way to get the positive vibrations of a plant into your body. It can also be used externally. I actually use them in one of my facial oils because I know that skin health is so dependent on emotional health, but that's up to you. So I hope that this helps. Again, there is a text portion of this below that sort of leads you deeper into each of these elements, but I hope this gives you at least a little bit of an insight into natural skincare.